Folks, welcome back to the Banditos POD to the pod. Woo! Banditos pod episode 3. No time for crying. We are into April, but it's not time for showers. Brought to you by, of course, all episodes of the Banditos pod and all content brought to you by Cellino Plumbing and HVAC. Whether you need a plumbing issue, whether you need something with your furnace, or it's just becoming that time of season where you want to stay cool, make sure you insist on our friends at Cellino Plumbing and HVAC for all your home needs. 716-68-FLUSH. But Gatesy, Banditland not exactly flush with confidence after these last couple weeks. It's funny, the team's 11-4. You would have taken this 9 times out of 8 to start the season, but a rocky road here as of late.
100% a rocky road, and yeah, Bandits have lost 2 straight games, and we've been talking about it in the early episodes here of just what's our concern level at for the Buffalo Bandits, and it feels like each week that happens, they win a game and then they lose a couple more. We're kind of in this weird state of what are they going to do? They sell at the KeyBank Center yet again, lose by 1 to Vancouver. It's tough that the Bandits are having their biggest setbacks when the most eyes, at least in Buffalo, are watching the Bandits, where I think that was their 3rd sellout of the year. And it sucks, Maniac. I know you were there for that game. It's just a tough way for it to end.
Yep. Joe Eberhardt on Instagram chiming in. Offense has been in a damn slump. I would agree. And the thing that's been really killing them, Gatesy, obviously, I think, what was it, a 6-0 start? Now we're 11-4, so you got kind of that 5-4 in the last 9 games, kind of even out. But these teams are kind of jumping on the Banditos. Vancouver did it. They scored, it felt like 4 or 5 in the first couple minutes there. And the Bandits were battling back. You just don't want to be in a situation where you're behind, obviously, early in the game. It doesn't matter how good of a team you are, and the Bandits are a great team. But then you look more into the Vancouver numbers. I'm reading on bandits.com here. Always a great asset to go to the source. But 14% from the floor they shot on last Saturday. And then you've obviously got turning the ball over 34 times in a game. Those are just things. It does not matter. You could have the NLL Monstars out there.
Whoa.
But if you shoot 14% from the floor and you turn it over 34 times, Gatesy, you are just not going to win a lot of box lacrosse games.
Yeah, it's tough. And we talked last episode too. Like my big takeaway is I wanted the Bandits to stay out of the box. That's something they're at their best. 14 penalty minutes last game. They took more in Vancouver. It's tough when you don't put yourselves in the right position to win games. And right now, we've been saying all year, the Bandits have the target on their back-to-back champions. Each team's going to be gunning for them. You can't put yourself behind in games and expect to, miraculously pull things out when each team is going to play their best lacrosse against you week in and week out. And hopefully, these can be learning experience for the Bandits. It feels like forever now. Really poor starts, slow starts. They find a way to claw themselves back in. Trying to spin zone that mentally is a good thing that they won't give up. They'll fight to the end. But it is concerning that this is just a conversation every single week, Maniac.
Yeah, it's crazy because there's a lot of reason to be concerned, and that's why we got like the first bullet point, a lot to worry about. At the same time, it's just also like these are the Bandits. They're either going to flip the switch once the playoff starts, or they're going to be in a lot of trouble because either way, it doesn't matter if they have the 1 seed, doesn't matter anything. They have to play a quarterfinal game in that first round where it'll be single elimination. If they have a dud like they had against Vancouver, they'll be going home. And you hate to see, this streak end like that. But, obviously that's the beauty of sports. You got to bring your A game virtually 24/7, and the quarterfinal of the NLL playoffs are no different. Those quarterfinals, by the way, just 3 weeks away now, starting April 24th through the 27th that weekend. The NLL just revealed. So yeah, there's a lot of cause for concern for Banditland, and not just the losing, Gatesy, but now we're losing players. Cloutier to the IR. I would say, that obviously starts with Josh and Dane up top, but a big time role player for these Banditos that we're going to be without.
Yeah, with the Bandits, and I feel like with every team, no matter the sport, you go on that long playoff run, you're going to win a championship. You need more than just, those top 2 guys. You need everyone to contribute. And losing a guy like Kluch hurts the Bandits, where you're not going to have that, just that extra layer of scoring where, you get to an overtime game in round 1 like last year. All it takes is 1 shot to go in.
I'll tell you,
from anyone.
I can't tell you how clenched my butthole was in the quarterfinals last year in OT. If they find the twine, Gatesy, we're going home.
Yes.
We're literally, the season is over. Obviously, the Bandits were able to pull that one up. But yeah, you just don't want to be in that situation. And obviously, the Bandits are the number one team in the NLL. And we'll get into some more of the odds and that talk in a second. But it's just like you would think, I mean, the number one team in the NLL, you've kind of earned the right to at least like skirt a little bit in the in the quarterfinal round in that first round. I mean, you look at like the Bills and the wild card, they've had success there, but no, I would expect it to be a challenge, just like I would expect these last 3 games remaining on the schedule. Quick in the numbers, though, while we're talking about how worried we are and everything else, in their last 29 games, the Bandits are 24-5. They're 11-4 this season. 3 of the 4 losses were by 1 goal.
Yeah.
So, yes, they're taking like teams' best shots, but also like, yeah, maybe this is just a little bit of a regression to the mean. Like maybe they weren't as good as that crazy start was, Gatesy.
Yeah, I mean that number there was an insane stat just off the get-go. And I mean, it really sucks too. It's more in recent months. When you talk 1-goal games, it's tough for that NLL playoffs, like we're talking about, where it is just a single game. One guy doesn't show up, your season's done, everything you work for, basically meaningless. So it's going to be really interesting how the Bandits play, but also it's going to be at Banditland. Notoriously not a great place for the Bandits to be playing this season. They seem to struggle, especially when you have sold-out crowds. You have a lot of eyes. They just can't seem to get the job done more recently, but we'll see what happens. Still 3 weeks to go to the playoffs, we'll get to a little bit, but big weekend ahead against Colorado. But right now, the Bandits, too, they're tied with Saskatchewan for first in the league, both 11-4. So crazy times.
That Saskatchewan game looming large for sure at this point. Both teams at 11-4 at the top of the standings. And yeah, the Mammoth on deck. This is a team. This is like, the Bandits haven't been playing the double dips and they haven't been, necessarily going through the tougher part of the schedule. But I think they noted it. One of the players did for sure. I mean, these are all playoff hungry teams. Mm-hmm. And the Colorado Mammoth, I mean, they don't need an excuse to get up against these Banditos, Gatesy.
These two teams, I just feel like have been linked forever. There's that, history forever, but also more recently, NLL championships. And yeah, there's going to be no worry about the Bandits having to get in that playoff mindset, playoff atmosphere, because it feels like they've been playing playoff games every single week, which is how tight and competitive these games are. So I guess that's a nice bonus where we don't have to worry about the Bandits, making a crazy, switch in the brain to get ready for playoff lacrosse, because that's been going on, feels like every single week now. And yeah, this weekend is going to be an absolute barn burner maniac.
Yeah, I would expect the ball to be flying and the fist to be flying too. I would not surprise me if these teams got into a tussle. For sure. In this week's matchup,
Saturday 9:30.
Saturday at 9:30. That'll be Banditos After Dark for sure. And speaking of playing, that's the top spot. Let's go. Let's talk some numbers real quick. With the NLL odds. So first off, I'm not excited about this, but DraftKings and FanDuel just do not make theirs accessible. So we got to go to BetUS, which Gatesy does not exactly format by odds. So it's not ideal. But you can see here, we got the Bandits at plus 160. Okay. And then you got 3 other teams under 10-1. You got the San Diego Seals, who beat the Bandits in overtime in Banditland. You got the Halifax Thunderbirds, not exactly familiar with their game. And then you got the Saskatchewan Rush, who also obviously down the Bandits, and we know are at the top of the standings. So all things being all things, Gatesy, a lot of confidence still in the Banditos from the bookmakers, considering that we're on a little losing streak here, and other teams are gaining some ground.
Yeah, I mean, just because the Bandits are where they're at recently and just in the way their games have turned out doesn't mean the Bandits are a bad lacrosse team. I think you basically talk to anyone, who has any sort of knowledge on the NLL. They have the Bandits at their number 1 in the power rankings. They have the experience. They have the skill. And yeah, it's just a unfortunate part of a season where they're looking a little mortal right now compared to previous years. But yeah, plus 160 to win. That is, I think, for any sports championship, that is like, I feel like every other league you see like plus 200, 300, 400 for a championship, plus 160. Odds are still looking good in Banditland to repeat a three-peat. Mute monster. Uh-oh.
I called the mute monster. But yeah, this reminds me of like the late December vibe with the Bills recently, where it's like you just kind of want the playoffs to start. You want to get underway,
just get there.
because you want to be ready for the games that count, obviously. But yeah, you see Colorado Mammoth at 12-1. That would not surprise me. Then I guess if they won, they could make a run into the 10-1 or less club that we just went over. But just to kind of loop back to the start of the Banditos pod here, by the way, shout out everybody tuning in, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. But we talked about a lot to worry about. So Dane Smith still leading the NLL in points, like on pace to break his assist record from previous seasons. So you can't be mad there. Still getting what we need from Byrne when we need it. I just think back to last game, Vancouver, and I think back to recently, Gatesy, and I want to cue this up to you. Are you more worried about the defense and the lapses from time to time, or are you worried about the apparent like scoring droughts that seem to be popping up every so often?
I would say in the context of a single, I'm just thinking like first round playoffs. That's where my head's at right now. I would be almost concerned about a scoring drought because, over the course of a 3-game playoff series, the offense is going to be there for at least 2 of those. You'd expect 3, but that one playoff game, one thing's not clicking. That could be the end of things. But I think over a greater scale, it might be that defensive side of the Bandits, even though, they held Saskatchewan, single digits. They find those games to really crank it up and play, I think, much tougher defensively, or they're not giving up a million goals to San Diego. So I am kind of worried on the offense, just on that one game spectrum where if it's not, going in the back of the net, the other team's goalie is playing incredible, season's done. So that's where I'm at right now. I mean, Nick, I know how you're feeling about, offense, defense, moving into this next 3 weeks here.
Yeah, I'm on a lot of the same page that you said. I think that when they've needed to crank up the defense, they've been able to do so. I do not expect them to come out in a playoff game and get like 3 or 5 put on them right away, like they've had it happen in a couple of these games recently, like the San Diego game and Vancouver comes to mind. Ultimately, like, am I worried about the scoring that much? Like I can't say I am, because it's like Dane and Josh can kind of go off at any point. But of the two, I'm definitely more worried about the scoring, because it seems like defenses kind of zone in on Josh. And then, yeah, maybe that's made it a little bit easier for Dane to dish, because obviously some of the supporting guys have been open, but now you're going to be without a Kluch. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they adjust. But that's on Tavares and the coaching staff, right? They got to set these guys up for success, and they got to put them in a position where, these guys are going to be able to execute offensively. I mean, it seems like I don't know anything about box lacrosse. Like we went over this, like as far as techniques, like, I have kind of an idea of like an NFL offensive scheme, or like what a basketball team might want to do with a 5-man offense. But it seems to me like the play is kind of using like one guy to border off a wall, like for your skill guy, like your Dane or Josh, to get them the ball open and then let them make a play. And when you lose a supporting guy like Cloutier, that obviously becomes a little bit more difficult, Gatesy.
Yeah, and I think it'll just open up some more opportunities for guys as well. Like Nanacote, I think, is a guy who I feel like every time he touches the ball, he just scores.
Now more than ever.
Yeah, you see that secondary scoring option for the Bandits. McKay will get some more offensive looks as well. So we'll see what comes of that. I think I won't say nice, that at least the Bandits will have a couple games down the stretch, figure some things out without Kluch, and go from there.
This is why being fan is so amazing, though. The Bandits are number 1 in the NLL in the standings. They're the championship favorite by far and away, and they got the biggest points differential in the league. And we're a little nervous. There's a lot to worry about.
It's nice. The vibe of the Banditos is very different than Crossing Swords, where, we're just at polar ends of the spectrum here.
Champagne problems for the Banditos.
Yes.
For sure. And thank you, enjoying our champagne and your problems with us here on the Banditos pod. Always fun to loop in for 15, 20 minutes a week to talk our orange and black team. Obviously, looking forward to Banditos After Dark. And if you haven't already, we had a sale for our Resurgence Quest for the 3P watch party. Tickets are now $15 on the Resurgence website. So go get those tickets. Come get that fun autograph merchandise from Josh and Dane, and come have an awesome time and root our Banditos on for a win as we go down the stretch season. But huge shout out to Cellino, our sponsor. Huge shout out to Gatesy here on the program. And like always, it is Let's Go Banditos. Pod, to the pod, to the pod, to the pod. Woo!